Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Race 7 on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup this year. David, we will see one of the most impressive 2-year-olds who was a debut winner and earned a big speed figure, Senza Parole, who will be running in the Frizette as we take a look at the field for this grade 1 that is going to go as race number 7 on Saturday. Do us a favor real quick. If you can, subscribe to the YouTube channel below. That helps us out quite a bit. Gino, Buccola, and David Aragona will get you all set up for this one. David, as impressive as we saw was the 8, Senza Parole.
Yeah, Senza Parole, before even making her stakes debut, I think is considered by many to be the leading contender for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and that partly speaks to a lack of accomplishments and fast speed figures by some of her rivals out there, but I think it's also apparent in her performance on debut. She won impressively, ran fast against the clock, and that has proven to be a strong race coming out of it with run back. So just seems like there's a lot to like about Senza Parole, but you're not going to get much price. I pegged her at 3 to 5 on the morning line.
Now, as we take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector, as expected, when we have a lot of these 2-year-olds and horses coming from sprint races, most of them were forwardly placed in their races, or they were close up early on. So the fast pace is projected with many horses in here who we're expecting to want to be right on the lead. That's actually a positive for a horse like Senza Parole, who actually showed she can sit off a little bit if she has to.
Yeah, she showed that dimension on debut. It seemed like she had the speed to go to the front, but Irad Ortiz reserved her off the pacer, like kind of wrangles her back to teach her to rate, and then she ranged up and ran past those rivals. But it's nice to know that she can do it as she steps up and stretches out in this Frizette Stakes. I agree with the pace projector. I think that the number 1 Snow White likely to go forward from the inside, especially with the connections adding blinkers for her next start. She couldn't quite get the 7 furlongs on debut. We'll see if she can go a bit farther this time.
Speaking of Snow White, let's take a look at that filly who is going to draw number 1. She is a horse who will now add the blinkers off of that runner-up effort. I thought she ran pretty well. She pushed through the inside. She battled on the lead. She was on the lead early on in the stretch. She put away the first challenge, and she just could not hold off a late runner there. But this is a barn who's very, very good with horses that make their second start. Just maidens making their second start have been over 21% and a positive $2 ROI. The Dam was a multiple stakes winner going long, and 2 of 5 Sibs won going long. So we can project a little bit of improvement, David, for a horse who had some natural speed in the debut and could be better going longer and could be better second time out.
Yeah, even though she's only a maiden, I made her the clear second choice in the morning line for all the reasons you laid out there. I think there are a lot of things to like about this filly as she makes that second start for Danny Garkin, who, as you said, does tend to get these types to improve. There is other speed in this race drawn towards the outside, so I don't think it's going to be easy for her to make the front end from the inside if that is the intention with the blinkers going on. You would think that that is the hope, that she can get forward once again. And with a little more fitness gain from that debut, I won't be surprised if she's able to finish a little better. One caveat to that race is I did feel like September 1st was a day at Saratoga where the rail was playing very favorably, and she did stick to the inside for her entire trip. So just something to keep in mind.
The Queen's MG grade 3 winner at 6.5 furlongs. It's funny when you look at this filly, she has 2 wins at where she paid like $90. You just rarely see a horse come back after a huge price and be a huge price again. My concern and my questions with her will be as the distances get longer. Is she a horse who was maybe just a better sprinter, maybe a little more precocious than some of the others? How classy and how far does she really want to go? But I think we can give her a mulligan for that last race on the muddy track, David. Maybe she just didn't like the off track, put a line right through it. How does she stack up in this group?
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from her accomplishments because she obviously had a big Saratoga, winning the Schuylerville and the Adirondack. Couldn't quite make it a triple in the Spinaway last time, but she didn't run terribly in that race. She was contesting a pretty honest pace that came apart towards the end. That was a taxing race over a muddy track, and she just got tired. But I agree, stretching out to the mile in a race with other speed. I'm not sure if this is going to be what she really wants to do. And she does have to get faster to beat Senza Parole and maybe even some others in this field.
The number 3, Pondering, was a horse who had a very impressive debut at Ellis Park and then stepped up in the spinaway and got some action that day. Was only 5-1, was one of the top betting choices in the race. And she just didn't really fire in that one. Maybe it was a combination of things, but could have been the off track. Can we give her a mulligan for that? Can we put a line through it and give her a chance right back? And then the other question would be, how did you like her coming off of that debut race? How does she stack up here?
So I was on the fence about her going into the spinaway because as visually impressive as she was, that was a race where horses did not come back to run to that speed figure. They actually regressed in subsequent starts. So I felt like the 75 buyer might have been a little high going into the spinaway. And then she just didn't really run that day. Maybe it was the muddy track that she didn't handle, but she just never really had anything. She came under pressure very early. I think it's a little strange that Brendan Walsh since then has worked her twice on the Oklahoma turf course up at Saratoga, as if they were almost thinking about running in a prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. And that says to me that maybe they were concerned about stretching out in distance on the dirt, and her pedigree would kind of confirm that because it's all sprint breeding on the dam side. So I've got some reservations about this filly progressing and going longer.
Whatintheliteral is the Astoria winner back in June. Stumbled and had an issue where she lost the rider a few starts back. Then in the Adirondack was just well beaten that day. Most recently at Gulfstream Park was a runner-up behind Andrea, but was well beaten. Another one who hasn't seemed like they've really progressed since earlier on in the year. What do you think about the number 4, Whatintheliteral?
Yeah, she really had all the best of it when she won the Astoria. That was a speed favoring weekend at Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes. And since then, she just hasn't run back to it. I know she lost the rider once and she's had some excuses, but she just doesn't look like one to me that is really moving forward or really is going to appreciate the mile.
Scottish Lassie, still a maiden. She was defeated in her debut by Snow White, when Snow White finished second and Scottish Lassie finished third. She was actually favored in that debut race, though. She kind of loomed up, but she was really no match for Snow White when the real running started. What do you think about her as a maiden now, stretching out a little bit? They obviously have high hopes for this filly, throwing her in this Grade 1 race.
Yeah, this horse was highly regarded coming into that race, as you say, inherent in the price. You could see that she was working really well ahead of that start, actually outworking an older 3-year-old filly that was a stakes winner in the Jorge Abreu barn coming into that race. So I think her performance looks a little disappointing that she faded at the end and was only third. But coming out of the gate, even though she broke from an inside stall, it seemed like Irad Ortiz was intent on immediately getting her to the outside. And she got that 3-wide trip against a track that I think was favoring horses towards the inside. So I want to be a little forgiving of her fading at the end of that race. She's bred to go longer being by McKinsey, and we've seen some McKinseys appreciate added ground already. So I think she's one that has some upside coming in here.
Paradise City was visually impressive in that Gulfstream Park win back on September 6th. It was close up, then backed off to third in a little bit of tight quarters. But I thought visually extremely impressive, able to angle around to the 2-path and win a stretch battle and then kind of draw off. Just showed multiple moves, David, and didn't seem to me like a 2-year-old filly making their career debut.
Yeah, we said a lot of the same things about Senza Parole in her career debut, and I think you could echo those sentiments for Paradise City, getting that education, sitting behind horses, coming outside, splitting them, and showing the turn of foot and the finish to put that rival away towards the end. Now, the downside is that she ran a much slower speed figure than Senza Parole did, but horses like this can improve a lot from one start to the next, especially when they get those experiences under their belt. I was looking up some stats for Safi Joseph in DRF Formulator over the past 5 years, with last out debut winners stretching out from a sprint to a rout in their second start. He's 5 for 12, 42% with a 293 ROI. So I think there are some signs that maybe Paradise City can take that step forward. She certainly has the pedigree to do so.
Yeah, the Dam was a Grade 2 winner going a mile and a 16th right there, so should have no problem going a little bit longer. Another Cleeshay was a winner at Saratoga on August the 30th. She got the lead that day, kind of pushed through from the inside, though. Not sure if she's necessarily a need the lead type. She opened up. Another one who was visually impressive, didn't earn a huge speed figure or anything, is a New York bred, but was geared down late, ended up winning that race by 9.5 lengths. So they'll step up and see where she kind of stacks up against the real tough 2-year-olds in the open company here.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on her. She looked great on debut. I mean, as you said, she didn't get away that quickly. She rushed up, set a honest pace, and just pulled away at the end. I don't think there was a whole lot behind her that day. The third place finisher came back to run at Churchill and didn't do very much, finished off the board against the tougher field. This was one of those auction restricted maiden races. So she is taking a significant step up in class here and has to deal with other speed. I thought she might have her work cut out for her.
Yeah, the horse to beat is Senza Parole, who is 1 for 1. That one win came at Saratoga on August the 23rd when earning a 94 Beyer speed figure. And a lot of times when a horse earns a big figure, we're not exactly sure what they beat. But the horse who was second that day came back to win a maiden special weight next out at Belmont at Aqueduct with an 86 Beyer speed figure, David. So it kind of franked that form of Senza Parole. And just when you watch a horse like this, you always wonder, can they come back to that race? But if she does come back to this race, everyone's running for second.
Yeah, the runbacks have been strong from this race. Even the third place finisher, Hey Everybody, came back to improve by 1 Beyer point, finishing second to Stunner in her next start. So that was a strong race. The Beyer speed figure of 94 seems totally legitimate. She's by Gun Runner out of a Street Cry mare, so that alone says that a mile is not supposed to be a problem. I do wonder how far she's ultimately going to want to go. Watching the replay of that race, she's got that quick action to her that to me says she looks a little bit more like a sprinting type. She probably has the class to win going a one-turn mile, and against this field, she's got such a speed figure edge. She is way the horse to beat, but she is trying something new at a very short price, and I think you always want to be a little skeptical in those situations.
And a lot of times when we see horses with those huge speed figures in their debut, there's nowhere to go up. They will probably regress a little bit off of that. And a lot of times they're good enough to regress and still win. But if you like some of the other horses in here or you have high hopes for some of the others, it might be an interesting spot to maybe take a swing against a horse like this who's going to be a very, very short price. Let's move to Social Fortress, the next one in here. Interesting Florida bred. Hasn't really been tested, David, in 2 starts. Very, very fast and proven going a mile in here. What's a positive for her, too? She's drawn probably to the outside of all the speeds in here. So that should kind of give her the opportunity to use that speed as she likes it. Do you think she can step up and be competitive with this group?
Yeah, I mean, you look at her results at a glance, and she's won a couple starts by a combined 18 lengths, and that sounds really impressive. You go back and look at the fields that she was beating, and you kind of see why she won by those margins. I mean, she won an off the turf maiden race at Delaware, and then this race we're taking a look at in the sorority last time. She got the mile, but there just wasn't a whole lot of form coming into this race. Nobody had run a particularly fast speed figure, anything that comes close to the 71 that she got on debut. And she even regressed a little bit. Actually, a perfect example of what you were talking about with Senza Parole, taking a slight step backwards, stretching out to the mile. And she's going to have to run a lot faster than that if she's going to beat this field.
And we round out the field with Icona Mama, who is grade 3 placed. Was in the Pocahontas last time out. She's actually multiple stakes place. She had a good start, but she wanted to sit. She was inside. She was about 4 lengths off. She moved to the 2 path in between up to third. She was just behind the leader. She was traveling well, and she did get shuffled back on the inside. She just missed second that day. I thought there were some things to like about that effort. Just kind of curious how it will stack up moving from the group over in Kentucky and the Pocahontas over here to New York with Senza Parole in this group. How do you think she fits?
Yeah, I don't know if she's going to become a grade 1 winner in this race, but she's the kind of horse that I could see picking up some pieces in here, and one that I definitely want to use if I'm playing exactas, trifectas, especially on the bottom rungs of those wagers, because she's at least reliable. She's run well in all 3 starts, and she got the mile last time. And I've got distance questions about a lot of horses in this Frizette field, and she's already proven she can do it.
As we move to selections, looked like we had a similar approach in this race, David, where we're both going to put kind of an interesting price horse that we like a little bit on top, maybe a horse that we can put a few bucks to win on, but the horse to beat, we'll both put in the second spot, Senza Parole, and then maybe some other fun, intriguing horses behind them. Talk to us a little bit more about Paradise City, who you have on top.
Yeah, I think we both agree that Senza Parole is far and away the most likely winner of this race. It's just a question of value with her, and I would rather take a much bigger price on a horse like Paradise City, who I do think has the upside. As you noted, she's got that damn side pedigree to stretch out. I found those positive stats for Saffie Joseph. I like the visual of her workout since then. I just think that there are some signs that she might be able to take that step forward. She's going to need to at a price.
I'm going to give Pondering another shot back, just kind of eliminate that sloppy track. I like the Ellis Park debut. figuring this is a horse who might be able to sit close up, maybe just behind Snow White, sit second or third, get the jump on maybe some of the others in here. So I'll go 3-8-7-1, David, 6-8-5-10 in an interesting running of the Frizette. It's going to go as race number 7 on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A.
If you enjoyed this video, please click the like and subscribe button below for more great DRF content, including Race of the Days, stakes previews, and lots more. You can find it right here.